Okay, so, well, hello, everyone, and welcome. Here we are at the end of the Commission on the Status of Women. I hope many of you were able to take part in some of the wonderful presentations there. And we're almost at the end of the Women's History Month. And so we're glad to offer what is going to be basically an upbeat webinar or Zoomimar or whatever on some remarkable women working for justice and peace in Africa and out of Africa. My name's Robin Lloyd, co-chair of WILPF Disarm End Wars Committee, WILPF US Disarm, and helping with the logistics is Ellen Thomas and George Friday. I'll introduce him later. So this webinar arose out of our successful webinar earlier in December titled AFRICOM and Human Rights in Africa. The collaboration with Black Alliance for Peace and World Beyond War, two powerful organizations with powerful websites, boosted attendance there and made some of us feel that we were actually being heard outside of the cyberspace, the larger cyberspace. So today we've invited Margaret Kimberly, a senior columnist at Black Agenda Report and on the board of Black Alliance for Peace and a member of Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, to bring us up to date on the background and activities of AFRICOM. So I trust you all know what AFRICOM stands for. It's the African Command that handles US military operations in Africa and maintains military relations with 53 countries on that continent. There are 54 countries, and the one that's not included, as I understand it, is Egypt. So we discovered that AFRICOM is planning its biggest military training exercise yet for this coming June, AFRICOM Lion. So watch for that. So welcome, Margaret. Please take the voice.
Hello, I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Greetings, everyone. So nice to be with you again. Thank you all for joining this Women's International League for Peace and Freedom US event, honoring African women who strive for justice. This is a follow-up to our December 2020 webinar in which we discussed the impact of the United States Africa Command, AFRICOM, on African nations and on women in particular. As a US citizen and a person of African ancestry, I feel a personal responsibility to speak out on this topic. My government has claimed the right to carve up the planet into various command spheres of influence, Northcom, Southcom, Indo-PACCOM, Eurocom, etc., which undoes the will of millions of people. AFRICOM, it began in 2008 in the last months of the George W. Bush administration, but it underwent a huge expansion during the Barack Obama administration. Now there are US forces stationed throughout the continent, and only a couple of African governments are not part of this command. Egypt is in fact in another command. So AFRICOM makes other governments subservient to the wishes of the United States. And that means that millions of people become subservient as well, as their governments become part of the US NATO axis, which 10 years ago in 2011, destroyed the government of Libya and killed thousands of people in the process. That country still has no functioning state. The proxy forces funded and armed by the US and its NATO allies have spread to neighboring nations such as Mali and created chaos and suffering there. Lest we forget, there's an ongoing humanitarian crisis in Libya, including enslavement and thousands of deaths of migrants using Libya as a point of departure for European countries. While AFRICOM is often public in its pronouncements, it's not transparent. You have seen, and Robin just said, the announcement for this event that AFRICOM has announced an upcoming military exercise scheduled to take place in June, African Lion, which will involve up to 5,000 troops from the US, Morocco, Tunisia, Senegal, and other nations. The announcement can be seen on their website, africom.mil. However, even members of the US Congress were caught by surprise when 4 soldiers were killed in Niger in 2017. Some said, and I believe they were being honest, that they didn't know there were any US troops in that country. There is in fact a large drone base there in the Agadez region. But all of these locations are not known, and there's been a lot of conjecture about where they exist. And I want to add one more thing. It's very important to mobilize with a new president in the White House. So far, Joe Biden has, like his predecessors, continued US foreign policy directives put in place by those before him. Despite the desire for change in the country that put him in office, his foreign policy is thus far no different from that of Donald Trump. And claims of fighting terrorism, as in Somalia, are really efforts to control resources, and which create a kind of terrorism of their own and destroy prospects for peace. I'm a proud member of WILPF US and also a member of Black Alliance for Peace. Black Alliance for Peace seeks to recapture and redevelop the historic anti-war, anti-imperialist, and pro-peace positions of the radical Black movement. I hope you will take a look at our website, blackallianceforpeace.com, and see how we have mobilized on issues impacting African people. I also urge you to join the US Out of Africa Network. I'll put these website addresses in the chat. Join the US Out of Africa Network, blackallianceforpeace.com/join US Out of Africa Network. And you will receive the AFRICOM Watch Bulletin, which we release bi-monthly. Also, please sign the petition US Out of Africa. We'll put that in the chat as well, and assist us in advocating with the Congressional Black Caucus and other members of Congress to get the US out of Africa. That should be our goal, for African nations to be independent, to be sovereign, for the US and other NATO nations to allow them to develop in peace, to resolve their own problems, and to have peaceful states that work for the benefit of women and for all people. So I thank you so much for welcoming me again. Thank you all very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for laying this out for us and showing the big picture. And we're going to take a 1 minute view, a 1 minute videotape taken from, it's just a clip of Wangari Maathai from my film Peace Train to Beijing, who spoke on this very subject many years ago at the rally of the Fourth World Conference on Women in 1995. She says it perfectly. Are you able to upload that, George? I see it coming. There it is. It starts.
There is hope. No matter how subjugated we feel, no matter how hopeless we feel, and especially in my region, when we remember Rwanda and remember Somalia, Liberia, Sudan, and all the other places where slaughter goes on all the time, we speak against arms trade. The guns are being sold to poor Africans to kill each other so that they may remain poor, underprivileged, and marginalized. But we cannot lose hope. Here in Beijing, in the midst of all of you, we feel that the sun shall rise.
Gonna reach across our board.
Wow, that's beautiful. She's such a powerful speaker, and you will be hearing more from her later on in this webinar. So, George Friday, I wanted to introduce George. She's a speaker, an activist, and co-organizer with Teresa El Amin of the Umoja Unity Talks of the Black Liberation Movement. And she will lay out a few of the procedures and ground rules for the next hour and a half.
Thanks a lot, Robin. It's really great to see you all and wonderful to be a member of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. But I don't want to take any time from our speakers. I will just quickly let you know about the logistics of our speaking today. We're about to hear from several speakers who will be sharing their stories or sharing stories of those they honor. Each honoree or person talking, sometimes it may be two people, y'all each have 5 minutes. And you know ahead of time whether you're going to take those whole 5 minutes or if you're sharing those 5 minutes with someone else. I don't know that, you know that. But what I do know is when you're down to 2 minutes, I'll give you a sign. I'll give you 2 minutes. Wait a minute. Where are my fingers? There you are. You'll see that. You'll know it's 2 minutes.
Hi, are you able to get on?
And when you're at it, Robin, I can hear you.
Good.
And when you're out of time, you will see over here, over my shoulder, over here, you will see my raise my hand. That means stop. Stop in the name of love. It's love, but it still means stop. So that's what's up. I'll tell you when it's 2 minutes, and I'll put my stop in the name of love hand up when it's time for you to stop. Otherwise, I hope things go well, and it's really, really great to be with you. Robin?
All right. So our first country that we're going to be speaking about, and a person from that country, is Uganda. Uganda is a beautiful country at the head of the Nile. And now I will show our PowerPoint. Hold on a minute here, of course. Let's see. Oops, now. Sorry. There we are. Okay, I'm going to share a screen, and here we go. Honoring African women who strive for justice. Our first, as I said, our first country is Uganda. And Uganda's current president is Yoweri Museveni, who took power in January of 1986. President Obama sent American troops to Uganda to go after the rebel Lord's Resistance Army, and a decade and a half ago. And although the rebel army has since dissipated, the American troops are still there in Uganda. Following constitutional amendments that removed term limits for the president, Museveni has gotten himself elected in 2011 and 2016. He claims to have won the recent 2021 general election, but corruption has been rampant. Our first speaker is Hani Tamara from Uganda, who is living here in Vermont. Hani is a pseudonym because at present, US immigration has not yet granted her citizenship status. Hani will speak about one of the most influential women politically and economically in her country. Okay, go ahead, Hani.
Hello all, please refer to me by the name of Hani. Are you hearing me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm from Uganda and I came to the US in 2018 because of the the situation in my country, which is very bad right now. But it's not about me. Let me just honor that lady you see in the picture. She's called Barbara Kyagulanyi. She's the wife to an incumbent. Sorry, the election's already done, but she's the wife to Robert Kyagulanyi, aka Bobi Wine. She's been so influential. She's 35 years old. She has 5 children, but she has been influential even way before her husband stood for elections. She has an organization called Caring Hearts Uganda, which is in charge of caring for it's an NGO, and it is in charge of caring for a girl child and women. Mainly they give children reusable sanitary towels, because it's very hard to get sanitary towels for hygiene purposes in with the Ugandan children, and then also helping women start up activities that can generate some income to support their husbands, or for those that are single parents, or as women, how you see how women suffer in Africa. But of recent, her family has been under turmoil, because as you can see in that picture, those were during campaigns, but they had to wear bulletproof because they were being hunted. She had to send her family to the US, the children to the US for safety, because they were going to be kidnapped and tortured and killed, as most of her relatives have been, and everybody that came next to their family. Her family alone was tortured to give up, to actually encourage her to tell the husband to stop standing against the president, but she did not. She said she doesn't care if she's killed, as long as she's fighting for the freedom of the Ugandan people, and especially the women and children. So she has a heart of gold, and she's really, really very, very, she's like an iron lady. She's young, but very strong and very, very determined. So, and she's still continuing. So she never ran away, just like the way other people run away, like, the husband stays and the president goes, and the wife goes and takes care of. No, she stayed with the man up to the end, and up to now, they're still struggling. Okay, I think that's all I can say, because I'm being warned. But all in all, she's a very big, very big, important woman in the daily lives of the Ugandan women at the moment, but even with the limited support she has.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I think this is so wonderful to start this with recognition of a woman, and she's part of a young couple who, wouldn't it be wonderful if this generation could actually take power in some of the African countries. So thank you very much, Hani, and good luck to you. Next is Cote d'Ivoire. You all know where that is, on the it's called Ivory Coast. It's a French-speaking country in West Africa, between Ghana and Liberia. Cote d'Ivoire received independence from France in 1960 and was a largely peaceful country with a thriving agricultural base in coca. Since 1993, however, the country has gone through periods of upheaval between political forces, mainly from the north and the south. Alassane Ouattara has ruled the country since 2010. He maintains, of course, friendly relationships with AFRICOM officials while coordinating the African Partner Outbreak Response Alliance, that's what it's called in AFRICOM, which focuses on maritime military activities. He was re-elected in 2015, and last year, despite many protests, he won a 3rd term in office. His opponents argue that it was illegal for President Ouattara to run for a 3rd term, and besides, he was born in another country. So Eric Agnero is a peace and justice activist and social entrepreneur who maintains important contacts in Atlanta, Georgia, Washington, D.C., Burlington, Vermont, and Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire. He will honor Plucherie Gbalet, who is in jail in the Cote d'Ivoire. Go ahead, Eric.
Hello. Hi. I had to run to get my computer because I was looking for the best spot. Thank you all for having me. I'm so honored to present you Plucherie Gbalet. Plucherie is from Cote d'Ivoire. Cote d'Ivoire is in West Africa. And Cote d'Ivoire, for some of you who know, is #1 producer of cocoa. Cote d'Ivoire is also a country where civil society, women, citizens are trying to get justice, peace, reconciliation, and the opportunities to thrive. Recently, the country went through turmoil around the third term of our current president. According to many scholars and according to his opponent, he didn't have the right to run for a third time because the constitution of the country limits, that number of term to 2. So this lady, among many activists, probably the only one significant, lady among all these men, stood up and said, no, the people have the right to say no to the violation of the Constitution. And she was put in jail just for voicing an opposition. I mean, it's just words about, the non-constitutionality of something. So it could be, well taken care of, this battle at least in courts or any other assembly where we can just talk. So Plucherie Gbalet is in jail, in a prison, like very, very, very unsafe. Some organizations fear she won't be in good state because it's probably going through torture or any kind of violence over there. So today I would like not only to present her to you, for you maybe to take action, maybe a senator, a US congressman, but also to give hope to many women across Africa, around the world, who are facing, very harsh conditions when it comes to they say something in the national debates or political realm. And Plucherie Gbalet, like many other, African women, are being denied that right, the right to participate in the politics of the country. So, question before I leave you, are you just enjoying here in the US the grace to have a say or to see your fight for human right move forward, or to be left in other countries, with no hope of knowing, that at least what you're doing is changing something? So Michelle Obama, to whom, some citizens of Ivory Coast and Ivorian Americans are trying to reach to, said that there are so many causes, so many, issues for which one can, sacrifice. So I'm pretty sure she was not talking only about the women or, the youth or, the people here in the US, but she was talking about all human beings, meaning Ivorians, women, have the right to also look for the best for the communities without being, opposed any violence against. So thank you all for looking, to understand more about what is going on in Ivory Coast and eventually make a move, favorable move, for the release of Plucherie Gbalet. Thank you.
Robin, you're muted.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. And if you can put in the chat how we could reach Plucherie and support her cause, that would be wonderful. Our next, is that okay?
Yes, thank you.
All right, good. Our next country is Kenya. You see here a map of Kenya.
Robin, we don't see your screen.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you have to stop and then share what you want us to see. Thanks.
Oh, okay. Here we go. Is it there now?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay, great. All right. So that little picture is the country of Kenya. You see that the equator goes right through the middle of it. There's the Rift Valley, where some of the oldest human remains have been found. And the fractious border shared with Somalia has been really a hotbed of activity for AFRICOM and the conflicts there. Kenya was the home of Nobel Peace Prize winner, Dr. Wangari Maathai. Maathai, okay. We have a special treat, Lisa Merton, who with her partner, Alan Dater, are Vermont filmmakers. She has made a full-length film on Dr. Maathai. She will share some of her images and insights from her long friendship with Wangari. And I will go off of sharing and allow Lisa to put her images up. Is that?
Yeah, actually, I'm just going to show a clip
Okay.
after I say a few words. I could have put images up, but I didn't think about that. So you just have me for a minute here. Is that okay?
That's good.
It strikes me from the two people that have spoken so far that Africa's leaders learned very well from their colonizers. I mean, it's so appalling. It's just devastating to hear about Cote d'Ivoire and Uganda. I was born in South Africa myself, so I've been back many times. So I'm Lisa Merton. I live in Southern Vermont. I'm a filmmaker, and I'm also present chair of the Greenbelt Movement International US. The Greenbelt Movement is the organization that Wangari founded in 1977. And its mission is mobilizing community consciousness for self-determination, equity, improved livelihood, security, and environmental conservation, using trees as the entry point. So at this point, the Greenbelt Movement has planted around, upwards of 52 million trees. So Alan and I had the great honor of working with Wangari Maathai over almost a decade during and after the making of our film about her and the Greenbelt Movement. It's called Taking Root, the Vision of Wangari Maathai. And right now it's actually free on our website and has been since what would have been her 80th birthday last April 1st. She had a profound effect on my life as a woman, a filmmaker, and as a human being in a community of the living here on this earth. She liked that term, that we are a community of the living, and that comes from the Jesuit priest Thomas Merton, no relation. So the extraordinary thing about Wangari for me was that she embodied her experiences of growing up on the land. And she brought that consciousness, that understanding to every decision that she made. Every step she walked, and she talked about walking, you know, she always talked about walking. And every door she went through that was open or not open, she went through those doors. She took that consciousness with her about our place in the natural world. She would say, when you start talking about the environment, everything comes into play. Women's rights, human rights, economic and social justice, democracy, peace, militarization, the industrial military complex, as we've seen. Okay, I'm going. I loved her. I miss her. I'm going to share my screen. Here you go. This is for Women's Day. This is for African women. This is for all women. I hope this works. Share screen. Bloop. Share. Okay, here you go.
And I want to appeal to the African woman, don't be intimidated and don't withdraw and don't go back because you think that the men might be scared. What we need is to encourage our men to be strong men, not to be scared about our role, because whatever we do, we can only do it as women, and they should do their thing as men. And together we can make our societies much stronger. Most men somehow are scared of women who are strong, opinionated, passionate. And what I would really like to know from the men is, why does it threaten the men to have strong women? Why can't the men admire and want to be associated with strong women the way we women love strong men? Why can't it be reciprocated? Maybe the time has come for us to accept that you may be in the company of a very strong man, a very strong woman. Help her, nurture her, because she's a gift to the society. She's a gift to your family. Because we women, when we come across strong men, we love them. We want to be in their company. I wish it would be reciprocated. And we can start right here. Okay.
I don't know how to unshare my screen.
Down at the bottom at the, just click on.
Oh, stop share, it's at the top. Okay. So, this was between the time that it was announced that she won the Nobel Peace Prize and before we went to Oslo with her to actually receive the Nobel Peace Prize. And this guy had been giving her a hard time. He said, you know, you were too strong for your husband. You were too strong for the dictator of Kenya, Daniel Arap Moi. Do you ever think that maybe you were too strong? And this was her response.
Wow, that is really beautiful.
Yeah, there's a lot of clips, wonderful clips on Greenbelt Movement social media, you know, Instagram and stuff. We've been sort of celebrating her 80th year over the last year. I am done. Thank you.
Okay, so everyone, please go to Lisa's website, which, say it again.
Oh, it's www.takingrootfilm.com. Takingrootfilm.com. I'll put it in the chat, and you can see the film for the next month or so. It'll still be free for free streaming.
Okay, great. So we're going now to honoring another winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, and from Liberia. Maybe
You need to redo your share again, Robin.
Oh, okay. Okay. Boy. Now I put it up and then, is it there now?
It doesn't have the pictures, Robin. You're clicking on the wrong screen, I think.
This is is supposed to be, okay. I think the sharing of screen gets complicated when multiple people do it, or at least for someone like me, it does. Here we go, I think. There.
Perfect.
Perfect. Okay. All right. we see the small country of Liberia there. Liberia is unique it's on the west coast of Africa because it was populated in the 1800s, in addition, of course, to the indigenous people who were living there, by more than 1,500 freed slaves and freeborn people of color who had faced social and legal oppression in the United States, and so had settled in Liberia. It is Africa's first and oldest modern republic. But the African-American settlers did not relate well with the indigenous Africans. Political instability began in 1980 and lasted in 2003. And calling it political instability is, it does not state the crisis that occurred in that country. Several terrible civil wars took place that resulted in the death of 250,000 people and shrank Liberia's economy by 90%. It was a very prosperous nation, you know, up till that time. A peace agreement in 2003 led to democratic elections in 2005, in which Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was elected president, making history as the first female president on the continent. So Cherrill Spencer, a retired physicist and WILPF US Disarm co-chair, has long admired the Liberian women who pressured the Liberian dictator with creative tactics to take part in peace talks to bring the civil war to a final end. Liberian activist Leymah Gbowee was one of the leaders of the Women of Liberia Mass Action for Peace, and Cherrill will tell us some of the highlights of Gbowee's life. Sorry, I'm sure I've misplaced her name, misspelled her name, missaid her name. So please go on, Cherrill.
You have to unshare first. I can't share while you're sharing.
Oh, okay.
No, you're still sharing.
Yeah, sorry. I just unshared.
Yes. No, I can still see. All right. This is the, okay, here we go. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to call her Leymah because I'm not sure how you pronounce Gbowee. I've called this How Sisterhood, Prayer, and Sex Changed a Nation at War, which is the title of her memoir that she wrote in 2008. She has a very long story. I'll do my best to cut it down to 5 minutes. Okay, I need to go to the next slide. Okay, so Leymah had just graduated from high school in Monrovia, the capital of Liberia, when General Charles Taylor led an armed uprising against the government of the President Samuel Doe in 1989. Her plans to go to medical school never happened. Her mother was traumatized by the quick appearance of this nasty bunch of men doing awful things. So Leymah had to actually look after her mother and 20 others at the age of 17. Somehow or other, she had a high school boyfriend and she had 2 children with the boyfriend. They moved to Ghana to avoid the gruesome atrocities that were happening in Liberia. He turned out to be an abusive boyfriend. She had to move to a refugee camp in Ghana. She was completely impoverished. But the first civil war ended in 1996, and so she decided to return to Liberia in 1997. She had family, of course, still there who could look after her. So by the age of 25, she was a single mother with 4 kids. And you can imagine that was not an easy life. So her country had been devastated by years of ruthless warfare, characterized by mass rape and brutal killing of the civilians. but she turned her life around by helping others. She had been raised in a Christian family, and she realized this, I'm taking quotes from some of her memoirs and things, with God's help, she could recover a sense of direction and make a better life for her family. So she enrolled in a UNICEF-funded program, and that was training people to be social workers and trauma counselors. And she did this for several years, especially talking to the young boys. You've heard of the child soldiers who did unspeakable things. So she was helping them to become normal citizens. So she became involved in peace organizations. And another civil war started in 1999. Charles Taylor, still the president, he managed to get into a three-way conflict with Sierra Leone, Guinea, and his own Liberia. We call this the Second Civil War. And Leymah began to realize that it was women's responsibility to the next generation to try to restore peace. So she joined a peace building network, West African network based in Ghana. And within that, in 2002, she helped to found the Women in Peace Building Network, WIPNet. So she was living in Monrovia, and her sister was in Ghana looking after, she now had 5 children because she adopted one. So she's working hard in Liberia, and the men and the boys were fighting, but it was the women who bore the brunt of the Civil War's impact. She says that God spoke to her in a dream in spring of 2002, saying, "Gather the women and pray for peace." And she took this as an instruction, and she and just a few others recruited both Christian and Muslim women from all social classes, and they formed a new movement called Women of Liberia Mass Action for Peace. And they specialized in silent, nonviolent protest. She and the others recruited women by going to marketplaces, by going to churches, by going to mosques, and asking the women to join their silent protests, because they were the only people who probably were going to actually get out of this civil war. And she was she apparently was a born leader. She was chosen to meet with Taylor. And sorry, did I miss one? Here we are. So these are some of the women. They wore white T-shirts, and they gathered on the road that Taylor had to go along to get to work every day. So there were thousands of them out there silently protesting. And they also had a sex strike. The women said, "We're not going to have any more sex with our husbands until they help to stop this war." She said it was not very effective, but it was excellent publicity. You probably heard about this back in 2003. And so she was chosen to he finally relented. She met with President Taylor and persuaded him to attend regional peace talks in Accra in Ghana. But the peace talks, which went on for some time, were stalled. So she took a delegation of women to Accra from Liberia, and they demonstrated outside the negotiators' hotels. And then that wasn't getting them anywhere. So they went to the hotel where the delegates were actually supposed to be talking, and they sat in the lobby and wouldn't let them leave. They wouldn't let them leave for food, and they were going to arrest her. They asked the police to come and arrest her, and this was her winning tactic. She threatened to undress. They, in fact, all the older ladies threatened to undress if the women did not resume negotiating. Now, according to African culture, this would have been an intolerable humiliation to the male delegates. It could also be viewed as a terrible curse. So in the end, a peace agreement was reached, the Civil War ended, and Taylor actually went to prison. But of course, there was work to be done to rebuild the nation, and to amend the wounds of the war demanded new skills. So she actually came to the US and attended the Eastern Mennonite University in Virginia, where she studied peacemaking and conflict resolution. I mean, she'd already invented some peacemaking and conflict resolution tactics, but she came to find out how to do it even better. And along the way, because she was quite famous, having helped to stop a civil war, she met Disney Abigail, who produced the award-winning documentary, Pray the Devil Back to Hell. The nice photo on the right is Leymah at some event where the documentary won awards, and she came to speak about it. So she became an inspirational speaker for against war, and especially against the violence towards women during war. And for all her efforts, she co-won the 2011 Nobel Peace Prize. So on the right is President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, and on the left is a Yemeni peace activist. And this is them standing in Oslo with their documentation of their Peace Prize. So she has continued her work. I mean, she was an alcoholic for many years because of the stress, but she's become an international spokeswoman. She's become an advocate for women and victims of war and violence. She was our keynote speaker when WILPF had its Centennial Congress in The Hague in 2015. Leymah was one of the main keynote speakers. Those of you who were there may remember her speaking.
You'll soon be at twice your time, Cherrill.
Sorry, thank you. Just
over time.
This is it. Just 2 months ago, she actually spoke in a webinar organized by WILPF's Peace Women. And at the bottom, there is a website where you can read all the details of her very interesting life. And I think I greatly admire her, and she keeps on working still, even after winning the Peace Prize. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Cherrill. Those two examples, both Wangari Maathai and Gbowee, I can't say her name either, are incredible examples of the fortitude of African women. And now we're
Can I just say something? That also the women in Nairobi did the same thing, Cherrill. They actually did strip naked to stop themselves being beaten by the security forces at Uhuru Park. So they did the same thing. And it was also used in Gabon. So it's something that women resort to if they must, and sometimes they must. Excuse me.
Good. Okay. So we're moving on now to Sierra Leone. I think this is no, it's not. But let's see if I can get it. There we are. No. Here we go. Sierra Leone. I chose this map so you could see all the small countries on the West Coast. And of course, those were all previous kind of ports for slave traders setting up forts and then grabbing the territory around it. And that's what resulted, one of the things that resulted in so many small countries there on the West Coast of Africa. So, so Sierra Leone is its population of 7 million people is largely Muslim and English speaking. The country was occupied by England up until independence in 1961. I have an interesting story about AFRICOM as it relates to Sierra Leone. In 2011, the commander of AFRICOM visited Sierra Leone just weeks before Sierra Leone's deployment of 850 troops to the so-called peacekeeping mission in Somalia. The US is contributing more than $14 million in training and equipment for deployment of Sierra Leone's armed forces to Somalia, fighting the Islamic Courts Union, now called Al-Shabaab. So this is proof of what Wangari Maathai was saying. Soldiers in one country are paid and weaponized to fight and kill Africans in another country. So Pat Himes is an environmentalist and WILPF member and director of the Trap Rock Peace Center in Massachusetts. She attended the WILPF Triennial Congress in Accra in 2018, where she met Katie Sesay, who she is honoring today. So please go ahead, Pat. Or demute yourself.
I am so pleased to recommend and honor Kadi Sesay this afternoon. We met in the airport in Accra en route to the Triennial Conference. And the only sentence I remember that she said to me is, "My passion is women and children." We bonded somewhat immediately, and we spent much of the time at the conference together. And it was there that I learned, first of all, just the same month as the conference, she had started the WILPF Sierra Leone chapter in her country. I've worked with her for 3 years now, and I'm going to list the many accomplishments of WILPF Sierra Leone. Before I do that, I want to say that she told me much about her life as we sat together at the conference. And what also stayed with me was her courage in resisting female genital mutilation. She had to leave home while she was in high school, live elsewhere, complete her high school, and stood by her conviction. And that has become one of the important missions of WILPF Sierra Leone, consequently. Over the 3 years, we have partnered on many projects that they have completed, and that's one of my reasons of admiration, is that they follow through on their commitments. I want to thank WILPF, the chapter in Boston, for financially supporting some of these commitments. The first of them is, it's a children's book collaborative on peace, justice, and environment. We have it here. Trap Rock has it here with a number of libraries. We give $1,000 for almost 100 books. When she heard about it, she then said, let's do it in Sierra Leone. And so that became the fourth place where we awarded the money and the books, found a Sierra Leone, he had a shipping company to bring those books over for free. The thing that amazed me was I saw their video on they're presenting these books to local schools. The children, the principal, the teachers welcomed them. The principal said, we will begin a special track in peace, environment, and justice with these books. I have never had that experience here. They can't get out of the libraries into the schools here in Massachusetts. The next project was one called Sports for Peace. And this came out of what they observed, that in the schools, especially among boys and playing soccer, that there was just a growing violence, conflict, fighting, etc. So they did a program called Sports for Peace, in which they had girls soccer teams, boys soccer teams, and there was a very strong piece around the theme. Of course, they each played competitively, but the purpose of it was really to show that you can play sports, enjoy them, and not end up in conflict. She gave a stirring speech to parents, teachers, and the boys from these games about sexual harassment in school of girls. The next project is ongoing. It's called Respect for Girls. It came out of Sierra Leone girls who are members of WILPF, who said that girls are subjected to sexual harassment. There is the threat of pregnancy as a result, and dropping out of their education. And so this is a team of 2 U.S. Programs that work with girls. One is part of Trap Rock, a long line of girls for racial justice. Another is called the Matilda Jocelyn Gage Scholars out of Syracuse, New York. They have partnered with the girls and a couple of young men, young women and young men from Sierra Leone. They're all high school age. The Sierra Leone kids have developed a song, backup music, and also ready to do a skit in school using some friendly teachers, guidance counselors, and essentially to instruct the teachers there and the boys there that they need respect. They are going to share this with other schools in Africa. Thank you, George. Thank you, George. This, I think, for those from African WILPF branches has potential to be shared, even via video, with other African branches where the same could be done in schools there. Finally, they have conservationist programs, tree planting in schools, and also working with poor women, rural women, in terms of small market gardens. And I want to say they just sent me their media strategic framework. This is for being on radio, TV, social media, print newspapers, organizing the press across the country. And I will leave it to Kadi to tell you the purpose of that. All right. Kadi, are you unmuted?
Welcome, Kadi. She's on, but we don't hear her or see her.
She's muted.
Kadi, unmute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, all. I'm happy and glad to be honored for your warm recognition to me on behalf of my country, WILPF Sierra Leone. I am Kadi Sesay, the president of WILPF Sierra Leone. Please permit me to give a brief presentation on behalf of WILPF. I want to say thank you again to Patricia Hines for that wonderful recognition. Having met Patricia Hines since 2018 is a blessing to WILPF Sierra Leone. As you have heard from Patricia Hines, from what we discussed from the airport up to the conference, I have passion to empower women and children, especially the girl child. As a child, when I was coming up, I used to share with my colleagues, especially the ones from poor homes, deprived homes. I used to share food. I used to share my clothing, my wares, just to assist them. I hate to see women, girls, straining. That's not all. I used to even help them to locate them to schools, especially after the war. There was lots of trauma with families around where I was staying by them in the mid of Freetown. I used to take children to places, to schools like Fawe. By then they were not paying. After the war, they used to help girls to be educated, especially those that have been abused. I used to assist them to those institutions so that they will be educated, so that they will gain life, they will from the trauma that they are facing. So with that spirit, I thought it fit to evolve into activism. And I've become member of WILPF. I read through their profile. I realized that it's all about serving humanity, especially women, children, and the youth. Involving them into peace building, peace drive, conflict prevention, and management, of which my country, Sierra Leone, has gone through 11 years brutal war that affected us a lot, especially women. Women were involved. Women were brutalized. I witnessed that because I was right in the middle of the city. I witnessed all that. After the war, there was lots of trauma. As I said earlier, people were in distress. due to the brutality that they have faced, due to all the incidents that happened. As a child, I have passion for women. Since then, I grow more passion for them to assist them in whatever little way I can. Sierra Leone being a post-conflict country, we are presently challenged with lots of community disturbance, even after the war, the 11 years brutal war, from domestic violence against women and children, sexual penetration against children, and rape, for which presently there is a state of emergency on rape and sexual penetration in my country. The essence of my involvement in WILPF is timely because WILPF mandate is all about peace mediation, peace building, and freedom for women. At the moment, WILPF Sierra Leone is involved in membership drive and mobilization, for which we have youth, children, and women. We are even planning to go to the southern province to launch a sensitization campaign on COVID, as we all know what COVID have driven us into. We are challenged with resources to enhance or spread nationwide, as that is our desire, not only to operate in these two areas, the city and the southern provinces. I just wish to draw your attention. For which I have this, after this, we can take active plan to work more. As we have heard Patricia Hines, we have used peace to bridge, you have used sport to bridge peace between communities, schools. We have mediated lots and lots of conflicts in communities that caused the war in Sierra Leone, and we are still doing, and we have more plans to do more. In this regard, I'm honored and happy. I feel belong, and I'm grateful to be part of this forum. I thank you for your audience.
Wow, well, thank you so much, Kati and Pat Hines, for making that connection. I mean, just sitting together in the airport and talking, and how it blossomed from there. That's beautiful. So, okay, our next is Regina Bertram. Some of you may know her, WILPF members. She was former president of International WILPF and is living in Minnesota now. She will honor and interview Germaine Basiata, who is the founding member and co-chair of Canada for Africa Group. I think I have the name correct. Germaine lives in Ottawa. And I just like to say a short word about Canada, because Canada's military footprint in Africa is really an extension of the United States and France's, because forces using military aircraft, the Canadian Air Force moves French military equipment and personnel from France and between France and the Sahel region of Africa. So, so Canada is complying with the United States in the AFRICOM extension into Africa. So I'd like to invite Regina to say a few words, and we have some pictures here as well.
Yes, I think this is very interesting. I want to say something about AFRICOM, since I have a long history in WILPF, that before they were setting up AFRICOM, we were having meetings with our branch in Washington, DC, and Vicki Ferguson was working with us in trying to understand the origins of what the plan was for AFRICOM. I know Germaine Basiata the day she arrived in the US at Duquesne University in 1996. That was when the civil war and millions were displaced and thousands lost their lives in Burundi. So she came to study at the university in the peace and conflict resolution program there. Another big event that I had in Africa was a UNESCO meeting in Zanzibar, in which the attempt was to invite women from all the African countries to discuss women and a culture of peace. Whether they got somebody from every country, I can't remember. But WILPF Sierra Leone, young lawyer, was a major speaker that got her on the program. She was very dynamic and she very vividly told of the brutality of what went on in Sierra Leone at that time. And that was in May 1999. So I want to introduce Germaine. Africa is a big continent, as you know. So it's how do you pick out people to honor? There are so many that we don't even know their names. There are so many that came to Beijing that sold bread on the streets in order to get enough money to get there. What Germaine is doing is working with women of all strata and in Canada. And I'm going to let Germaine tell about her past, if she likes, or more about what she's doing so she can network with other organizations around the country. Germaine, I'm proud to have you here. We had some good days together.
Yes. Thank you, Regina. Yes, we had some good days back in Pittsburgh. Thank you very much. I'm humbled and honored to have this opportunity to be with you all who have a passion that I share, which is advocacy for peace. Way back in 1996, when I first met Regina in a classroom, she was studying conflict resolution as I was, and I admire her for that, and she continues to inspire me. We parted ways in, I think, 1998, and here we are again, 20-some years later in this meeting physically. So the same issues around peace that we talked about then are still a concern in many African countries, including Burundi, my country of origin. As an immigrant living in Canada, I can appreciate the safety and economic stability that the country has offered me and my family. But like many other women in conflict zones, African women are the most affected by war. They are uprooted from their natural environments, and they're left to pick up pieces to create a semblance of normalcy wherever they find themselves. According to the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, the report in 2019, there was more than 6.3 million refugees in sub-Saharan Africa at the end of 2018. This number amounts to nearly 1/3 of the global refugee population. As you can see, the situation is very unsettling. So as African women, we are all called to do what we can to change this landscape, to see that our children do not grow in refugee camps. It comes down to changing political institutions and to ensure political leaders to act on the necessity and responsibility to protect the welfare of their own citizens. I've heard some people ask and comment, how do you find the courage to leave your own people, to go live so far away from your country and culture? Well, it's not really that one chooses. Refugees are forced to flee persecution as a result of war and disruption of peace. In Canada, where I live since 2002, I see African women, mostly refugee claimants, who struggle to integrate in their new life. At the same time, they know, excuse me, they know and they are really conscious that their fate is much better than other families or neighbors they have left behind, living in refugee camps for those who could make it, or others in prison, or in constant danger or persecution, if not forced to live in despicable poverty. The instinct in these women in exile, where when they get a first job, is to send money to support those left behind. They do this while starting a second, third new career in their 40s, 50s, or even 60s, often in conditions where they have to prove themselves twice as much as other segments of the population. So the commitment of immigrants in the African diaspora here in Canada to help elevate the lives of their fellow Africans on the continent led to the creation of the Canada for Africa group, Le Canada pour l'Afrique, for those who speak French. Members come from different community organizations, mostly African associations, as well as Friends of Africa. The organization that I lead focuses on empowering the African diaspora to develop leadership skills, to inspire younger generations in exile, and to share the knowledge acquired with their sisters and brothers living in Africa. The group's commitment is also to actively engage the government and decision makers to support the African Union Agenda 2063, especially programs that focus on empowering African women organizations. At the heart of our political advocacy is to encourage programs that promote institutional building for democratic governance, peace building, and support for African women organizations at the regional and local levels. Because without efforts and work that women peace builders demonstrate every day, we will continue to see masses of displaced families, generations of youth robbed of their future living in refugee camps. We believe that it's a moral responsibility for every woman to play a part in promoting peace because they naturally care. They nurture and plant the seed of peaceful coexistence in our children. We also need a louder voice and a stronger presence on the decision-making table to change the discourse wherever we live. This is the goal of the Canada for Africa group. Thank you for giving me this platform to talk to you. I'm happy to be here and talk about my passion. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Germaine, and also Regina, for the two of you getting together and presenting here today. And could you put your organization into the chat? Because I think we are forming here in Burlington a project, we're calling it Africa Day, and it will focus on Pan-Africanism, what it used to be, what it is now, and what it can be. And we want to connect up with other communities. And I understand you are already planning some events on May 22nd, which is the date that the African Union was formed. Eric can tell more about that because he knows. So wonderful. All right. Thank you so much. Our next is Somalia, and here let's see, I think it was more here. Go to Somalia, a map of Somalia. You can see it's right there on the point there leading into the Red Sea, which of course we know is blocked right now because there's a huge boat that's blocking all traffic into the Red Sea and to the Suez Canal. So this is a very important country internationally, tactically, strategically for the major powers. And that, I think, is one of the reasons that there is so much conflict there. Somalia is the nexus where all the stresses of Africa are being felt. You may remember Black Hawk Down, a hit film that publicizes the 1993 raid by American soldiers to deliver food to the capital, Mogadishu, which went terribly wrong and led to the deaths of 18 American soldiers and many, many Somalis. Since that time, I think the United States our presidents at least, have had a sort of grudge against Somalia and has helped finance a UN and Africa Union occupation of Somalia with troops from many countries, mainly Ethiopia. Trump liked to set AFRICOM and the CIA out to bomb Somalia, but up to the present, Biden has not dropped bombs on Somalia. Yay. I will pass it over to Sandy Baird, who will honor and introduce our friend Fatuma Boule.
Hi, my name is Sandy Baird, and Fatuma Boule. I'm a big fan of Fatuma Boule. I haven't seen her in numbers of years, but I am delighted to see her at least on this Zoom meeting. And hello, Fatuma. Maybe.
Hi, Sandy. It's nice to see you.
Great to see you. All right. So Fatuma, however, is in this country, and I wanted to mention how I know her and what I think, how important it is that she is here and what she has to say. I was a longtime teacher and professor at Burlington College. I had the great pleasure of having Fatuma in many of my classes, and I became, I guess, one of your, I don't know what Fatuma was, or was I your advisor? Anyway, yes. The important thing is I got to know Fatuma, and she was at Burlington College where she graduated with a bachelor's in 2015, I think, Fatuma, is that correct? Yes. And she was a student in the legal and justice area of studies, and she was really a brilliant student, but she was also kind of delightful person. I got to know her kind of personally, and I got a little bit of her story, which I hope she tells you today. She is currently a social worker in Brooklyn, and she has a boy who is she's a single parent, at least last I knew, and she's raising this wonderful kid in this country with all of the problems that this country has. She is a great mother. She was a great scholar. She was a great, she was just a delight. She had a great sense of humor, as I recall. And here she is to tell us a little bit about her story and why she left Somalia and what was life like in Somalia. Okay, Fatuma. So I would ask you, I just want to ask you if you could talk a little bit about your experience in Somalia, when you left, why you had to leave, and what are you doing here in this country?
Hi, everybody. My name is Fatuma. I'm really delighted. I'm really honored to be in this for African women striving to justice. I was born and raised in Somalia, but when I was young, then the war broke out. And the way war broke out was I was playing outside, then somehow I went to play the neighborhood. But when I came out, then, you know, everything was smashed and everything was gone. And I never thought that I will see my parents again. But however, then there was in the room, there was a man with a gun, and it was a white guy who has a gun. And I didn't know it was American military. And he was held there in the room for almost 2 days or 3 days from my understanding, but I was totally shocked and I didn't know. However, they let him come out, and they give him a peace. I don't know how it happened. I didn't know English by the time that I met that military guy. I didn't know in English. So when I came out, then there wasn't anything left in my area. And I thought my parents will come out with the house, but everything was destroyed. So, and then.
Was that, you're talking about the event that's called Black Hawk Down of 1990?
Yes.
Oh, I see, okay. I missed that.
1990, yeah, 1994, I don't know the year, but I didn't even know how to read. I didn't even know how to write. I didn't know nothing at all. Then somebody took me out from the war and brought me to refugee camp and adopted me. So then I grew up at refugee camp in Kenya, then came to the United States in 2004. For me, then I was looking for who I am, and I didn't know who I am. And I didn't know my background. I didn't know nothing about me. Then one thing that I was thinking was achieving my education and starting my own family because I was alone.
Then I went to Sandy. I went to school, every schools, because I was a single mother and I didn't have anybody to support me. Then I met Sandy in Burlington College with my son. When she met, she was welcome to my son, and I feel like I get the place I was looking for. I remember Sandy said that she had a grandson, and then she said they can play together. Then I said, Sandy, I'm a single mother and I can't afford it for child support. What should I do? And then she let me to come her classes with my son. And Sandy, that's one thing that I will never forget about it. It just touched my heart. Even my son remembers Sandy, and he says to me, did you talk to Sandy? You need to talk to Sandy.
Oh,
and I remember that when I have a class, he's coming with me, sitting there playing, and I was finishing my class. Sandy, it is, I really appreciated that. So that's how I came to refugee camp to come to America. And I achieved my degrees with the help and support of the Sandy that she was giving me. And if it was not Sandy there, I don't think so. I would achieve my education. I went back to Somalia again and looking for my parents, 2010. Then things still is not good, and it was really horrible, and I couldn't get them there. So that was my life, and I'm here when I graduated in Burlington College in Vermont, then I moved to here. Now I'm a social worker with mental health, but still working on my master's degree so that I can move forward and get my degree. That was my vision. That was my dream, that I want to achieve my dream. And also I want to be a model for my community, for my Somali Bantu, because that tribe is not recognized in Somalia right now. When you go and look at Somalia, in my region, which is at the southern Somalia, it's being captured with the Al-Shabaab or whatever it is, and we can't even get in our land. So my land is all, is being destroyed right now. I wish I could go back one day and then sit in my ancestral house and see how it looked like, because I never seen it. And I can't go back because of, Al-Shabaab and Al-Qaeda, or whoever that is in that area. So I'm here in Brooklyn, and I'm really honored that I still have a relationship with Robin, and still let me, be member of the organization and toward freedom. And I really appreciate it. And thank you so much.
Wow. Well, thank you. That was a mutual honoring, not only of you, but of Sandy and her work with refugees that goes on today. She has an office at the Alliance for Africans Living in Vermont, and meets with especially women who are in dire straits here in Burlington, Vermont. So thank you so much, Fatuma and Sandy. Our last
Thank you.
Acknowledgement is Cameroon's, and I will bring up a, oops, wait. I think I did it the wrong way again. Here we go. Yeah, the Cameroons is a curious nation. It's right at the elbow of Africa. Maybe someone can tell us why it's shaped the way it is. Sometimes it's considered part of West Africa, and sometimes as Central Africa. Additionally, it's deeply fractured by its colonial legacy of occupation by both French and English forces up until independence. Oil is a factor in Cameroons, of course. AFRICOM has been active in Cameroons in part to help the military fend off Boko Haram in northern Cameroon. Remember Boko Haram, who hijacked a bunch of children in Nigeria. I think it's spread around that area. Thus, the UN and WILPF Initiative of Women, Peace and Security, Security Council Resolution 1325, is of utmost importance in Cameroon. We have Guy Blaise Foygap, who is a teacher, writer, and activist, and currently the director of programs at WILPF Cameroon. He wishes to honor Mrs. Sylvie Jacqueline Dongamo, leader of the WILPF Cameroon section. Okay, welcome, Guy. Are you on?
I don't see him.
Ah, okay. Do you see Sylvie?
I do not.
How can that be?
Maybe they had a problem getting in. That's too bad.
They may have a problem with connectivity.
Oh, okay. That's too bad. Here's a picture of her, and she was on our earlier webinar. You know, in brief, it's very interesting that of African refugees coming to America right now, most of them are Cameroonians. If you watch Democracy Now!, they're trying to enter the Mexican border and so on. And that's because of this fracturing of the country between the English speaking and the French. At least that's my understanding of it. She was going to explain it in more detail, and over who controls the oil in that part of the world. Well, I'm sorry we don't have Sylvie here with us. But
Robin?
Robin? Time for questions and answers. Yes?
I wanted to say that I also met Guy at the African Women's Feminist Peace Conference, and I interviewed him. I did not meet the woman he has proposed, the head of this section. However, just to tell briefly about him, he grew up in a household of domestic violence, and he swore as a child that he would work the rest of his life against violence against women. And that has been the guiding sort of mission for him in working for WILPF Sierra Leone. He's written 2 novels as well on this theme. A very, very productive, very committed, very conscious person regarding violence against women.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, thank you for that. I so wish we could have had him, and I'm feeling we should do another one of these and just keep honoring people as time goes on. So George and Ellen, do you want to look in the chat and see if there are any questions?
I saw a question earlier, which you posed already, Robin. And mostly the chat is filled with resources, links, and names of books and whatnot that people could use. I don't see any questions, although I could have missed them. Ellen, did you catch any?
No, I didn't catch any. I wonder if maybe anybody would like to ask questions. If so, if you raise your hand and we can call on you. If you know how to raise your hand in the
I see Charlotte Danae.
Hi. Hello there.
Hi, you're good. We can hear you.
Hi, Charlotte.
Yeah, hi there. Somehow I lost the screen, but that's okay. Yeah, my comment was that what I call the great game for oil is now on steroids in Africa. And the pretext for going after it is fighting terrorists, whether it's Al-Qaeda or some of the other organizations mentioned. So it's very, very deadly right now in East and North Africa. Now you mentioned Cameroon. I was just wondering if any of the other presenters would care to comment on this. The Chinese are there, the Russians are there, the Americans are there, and the French are there. They're all fighting for oil. I hate to say it, but it's true.
Thanks, Charlotte. I see that Margaret Kimberly's hand is up. Margaret?
Yes, hi. I want to get myself back on the screen. Yeah, I think we can assume that the great power competition continues in Africa to varying degrees, but the biggest violators of African nations' rights, the biggest creators and the cause of the countries that cause the most violence are US and NATO. France has troops in Africa, Britain has troops in Africa, China has a military base in Djibouti, the only military base outside of China. There's a Russian presence apparently new in Central African Republic, but it's about resources, yes, among oil and other resources, as happens in the rest of the world, coups in Bolivia to get the lithium, oil in parts of Africa, diamonds, gold, all of these things. And many of these terrible despots they're put in place by people, powerful people in the rest of the world. So I think that's an important thing for us to always remember when we talk about Africa, the impact of outside forces. That's why AFRICOM is so dangerous. And all these interventions are so dangerous. It keeps Africans from their own rights, from practicing self-determination and their rights of sovereignty. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Margaret. So you guys are a great group, and I know you want to make good discussion. So to raise your hand, like Margaret's raised, and you can lower yours now, Margaret. So at the bottom of your screen, if you're on a laptop, if you move your cursor to the right, there's something that says reactions. And when you click on reactions, you'll see raise hand. I see Odile, but before I thought maybe that she may have been touching her face, Isvara Prademore. And if you had your hand raised, Isvara, you go ahead, and then Odile. Otherwise, it's Odile. No, Isvara, you're good. Thank you. We're learning. We learn together. Go ahead, Odile.
Okay, I was wondering if there is a council of women from Africa that are meeting regularly, ongoing council, to share news and to share tactics on what to do. Is there such a council meeting across Africa? Because when I was in Beijing with WILPF, as a representative of WILPF, I met an African woman from Mali, and she took me to the African tent. And they had done an African tent when they saw that we were against war. They had a day of African women against war, in which women from many countries of Africa was speaking. So I wondered if they continue and if there is a council. Thank you.
Well, I could answer that by saying that, we had the Fourth World Conference on Women in 1995, and usually, and this is a UN-sponsored event. And
yes, that's where I was speaking about that.
Every 10 years or so, and yet we haven't had another one. 20 years have passed. And some women's groups are afraid that if it happened as an official event with the nations, meeting to talk about it, that many of them have become more conservative, and that we would take a step back away from the Beijing platform for action. And yet other groups are saying, hey, no, we really should meet together. It's time we got together. So I probably that has been discussed during this Commission on the Status of Women that just happened. I haven't followed that actually, but it should happen.
I was asking if they were meeting in Africa, not in the US.
Uh-huh. Well,
nobody knows.
I'll just jump out and say, I'm sure there are lots of groups, and the African Union has a women's organization connected with them. Eric, are you still on? You know the African Union. Could you tell us about women's groups meeting in Africa?
Yes, I want to, yes, when I was working for the African Union in Addis Ababa, I had the chance to meet women in parliament. They call themselves WILPF, which is like giving a good whip to the men around, the African Commission. So they are, women getting together to work on issues as important as those we are talking about. And it's important that, when we talk about women, the same standards that apply to the US, to Europe, have to apply to Africa as well, because there's no civil right for people from America and civil right people tailored to those who are in Africa. And it's important for peace to happen that we tell our governments here in the West to treat the people over there the same way they would like, the people in America and Western world to be treated as well. So there shouldn't be women rights for women in Africa and women rights for women in the US. Now we've passed that stage because, with the wonderful job that, someone like Lincoln did, now we move to one country, to the rest of the world, because you can't say there will be peace until you treat people that are from another country the same way you treat people from, your own country. Voilà. Merci.
Okay. Merci. Any other comments out there?
Well, Fatuma, hi. I have a question around back Somalia, and my question is directed. I'm going to ask for Margaret. Margaret, are you there? I'm just wondering about when I look at my land, because we not fighting, we are not the one who was fighting in the land, we not causing any problem, but the people who have the power in Somalia made us, my land, destroyed with Al-Qaeda or Al-Shabaab there. And my people are the ones who suffering, and the kids and the women are really being raped, are really being killed. And we don't know what to do, and we cannot go back and help them. I'm just looking at if US government will have any help or any strategic that we can support and clean up those Al-Qaeda around my land, which is southern Somalia. I'm not talking about the whole Somalia, but southern Somalia is where Somali Bantu regional is.
And that was for me, the question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. I understand you're here in the States, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm here in New York.
Okay, great. I think it would help. I hope that you contact us at Black Alliance for Peace. I think the way to stop the violence in all of these countries is for the US to get out. Every time Somalians looked like they were going to resolve their issues, the US intervenes. And Somalia is near the oil-rich regions of the world. The US wants to control those sea lanes that are nearby. And so I still maintain that it's the United States that bears the blame for this terrible violence and all the chaos and all the suffering in your homeland. So a voice like yours is important because the AFRICOM is promoted under the guise of fighting terrorism. But the US action creates terrorism of its own. So I put my email in the chat. It's my name at Gmail, margaretkimberly@gmail.com. And please feel free to get in touch with me.
Sure, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
DJ Bowler, you have your hand up. Would you unmute yourself?
Yes, thanks. I just wanted to ask the name of the man right near the end, who the presenter who wrote 2 books, and what the names of the books are, or at least his name.
I think you're referring to Guy, who did not appear on
Right.
on this call, but someone was referring to him.
Right.
Guy Balez Fuyop, who is director of programs at WILPF Cameroon. So, and I think it was, who was it? It was
Pat Hines.
Pat Hines, who said she knew him. Would you be able to put his name in the chat? Are you still on? Pat Hines.
I've done it.
Oh, okay. You know, just to follow up on what Fatuma was saying, it reminds me of the woman from Kenya who spoke in the last webinar, and she said, young people and the youth are not listened to, and it's very hard to penetrate through the older generation who think they have all the wisdom. And that's why I think it was so wonderful to start this webinar with the young couple from Uganda, who are so charming and so on. Whether he would have been or will still be a president, he's a singer, so he has that kind of charisma in Uganda. But still, the idea of a young couple like that representing an African country would be, you know, a wonderful advance. When you think about it, almost all of the presidents are these kind of, you know, dinosaurs from another generation that are all competing with each other to maintain power up till the very end of their lives. So, yeah, your participation, Fatuma, is really important here, I think.
I see that Eileen Kurkowski has unmuted herself. Are you wanting to ask a question, Eileen?
Oh, thank you. I've been finding this very, very interesting and inspiring, actually. I was the one who mentioned that Pat Hines had been talking about Jim. So that I just wanted to help out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. There's Charlotte again. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's been so much talk about civil war in so many of these countries. And I just hope that we can get to the bottom of these civil wars. I did an in-depth study of what happened in Syria, and it's described as a civil war. But I got to say, even though the initial demonstrations were real, they were hijacked. And what it became is a huge big power struggle to control Syria. And that has a lot to do with controlling the resources in Syria. You all know about sending troops to protect the oil, according to Trump, who said that very inartfully. There's also massive oil and gas resources off the coast of the Eastern Mediterranean, and that extends over to North Africa and the Red Sea. So what I'm saying is that a lot of these civil wars are instigated by the big powers, and they have very deadly consequences. And one of the other things I found out is that Al-Qaeda and ISIS, I'm not sure about Al-Shabaab, their presence in those areas really have been used as a reason to justify stationing NATO troops there. And now we've got this organization, you know, some people look at this whole region as MENA, that's the Middle East and North Africa. It's all tied in with NATO. So the military there is to protect the oil and other resources. The reason I emphasize oil so much is it's the fuel of the military. So that makes it sort of national security. I would guess that lithium will become more so in our new age of technology. But I think what we need to do is to do an overall analysis of where these struggles for resources have an impact on the different struggles in Africa, because it's just getting more and more vicious, sadly. I don't know if others agree with me, but that's based on work I did on a book.
Eric agrees with you, definitely. And I see a couple of more hands. I want to call y'all's attention to the chat. I wanted to read this before Charlotte went, because I think it was related to the comment before she spoke, but Margaret Kimberly wrote, "We have to be careful to support movements and not people. The US has shown a willingness to switch horses, so to speak, and to support wine instead of Museveni." I lost it.
Yeah.
Okay, now I can't read the rest of it. Dang.
Yeah.
I can read it. I can read it for you. I wrote, thank you, George. Yes, the US has shown a willingness to switch horses, so to speak, and support wine instead of Museveni. Bobby Wine represents the opposition, but if the US backs him, he would not be better for the people than Museveni. So we always have to, and it's Museveni is so awful and at the behest of the US, and helped to invade Rwanda and Congo. I mean, he's been horrible for Uganda, for neighboring countries because of so much US support. But if he looks weak, and he did after this election, then the US can say, well, so much for you, Museveni, we'll switch to Bobby Wine. So then is Bobby Wine still an opposition leader? Not with US support. So these things can be very complicated, and they bear a lot of analysis.
And that's a great piece to represent, to support movements and not people, because that model, that foreign policy model, goes back decades, all to the detriment of the people in the land and to the benefit of the capitalists trying to line their pockets. So the last people on stack is Isvari, who I thought was the first person on stack. And after Isvari is Odile, and after Odile is Date. Date will be last, and then we'll go back to Robin. So Isvari, Odile, Date, and then back to Robin to close.
Thank you. I just have a question. I have learned so much and I forget things, and I would like to know how can we access later the recording of this if I need to refer back to certain things. Thank you.
I have posted that into the chat, and it's at the WILPF US YouTube channel, which you can reach easily by going to bit.ly, that's bit.ly with a period in the middle, /
because
WILPF US -YouTube, and that is in the chat if you can read the chat.
You can also go to YouTube and search WILPF. That's
WILPF
what I did.
WILPF US.
I
did. In WILPF US, and I found it.
And, I did, and everything is 5 years old in my whatever I receive here. But thank you very much. With this, this information is excellent for me.
The WILPF US YouTube channel is not 5 years old. It's only a year old, or less than a year old. And
the things that are posted there.
No.
The things that are posted there.
You might have just gone to the WILPF channel, or
you went to international WILPF. This is US WILPF.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for the clarification. Now I understand. Thank you.
Okay.
And then we have Odile, and then DJ.
Okay, I wanted to say that in the Middle East, it's quite common that the US gives money and arms to both sides. And in Congo, we could see that when the tungsten is the mineral that comes for our phone, our cell phone, then it's Canadian mining companies that are mining it. And they also give money to the small groups that terrorize the women and the community, because that way they can get the mineral without having to pay to the country where they take it from, because there is a constant war going on. And but it's terrible. So we have to look at what corporation does as well as nations. Hello.
Go ahead, DJ.
I just can't help asking whatever happened to the intention of unifying Africa. Did it go away with when they got rid of Gaddafi, or where is it? Because it would make a big difference, I think, to the interventions that are going on. Hopefully.
Well, it looks like Charlotte has an answer to that.
One of the things that Gaddafi wanted to do was to unify Africa, and also to develop a alternative currency to the dollar. And as soon as he started raising that,
to which the oil is pegged.
the shit hit the fan, so to speak. Yeah, and to which the oil is pegged. You know, Libya is a major oil producing, or was, country. He saw what was going to happen, and he put out warnings that NATO was trying to dig its claws into Libya and other parts of Africa, and he said, this is going to be imperialism all over again. It's going to disunify our continent. Well, he was right. I mean, for whatever people think of Gaddafi, and all of his corruption and so on, the same thing can be said about Assad. But I think we really need to step back and try to understand why there were certain leaders who did not go the way that the US and NATO wanted them, and they were brutally either overthrown, or in the case of Syria, there was an effort at regime change. What?
Hussein.
Oh yeah, Iraq, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, Iraq. I mean, just look at all. Yeah, oh, that's right. In Iraq, he wanted to change it from
dollars to euros.
Dollars to euros. You're right. We got to look at the monetary component to this. But DJ, that's the thing that's happening now. It's like unity is being attacked. Fragmentation is going all over Africa and the Middle East. And the war on terror, quote unquote, is the excuse for it. Used to be the war on communism. And then the Soviet Union dissolved, so they couldn't use that anymore. So it's the war on terrorism. And some even say, and I'll tell you, this is strongly believed in Syria, that ISIS was created by the United States. And, you know, Al-Qaeda's in Yemen. You know what Al-Qaeda is doing in Yemen? Is protecting the route of the Trans-Yemen pipeline. It's going to take Saudi oil south to a port in Yemen so it can avoid the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf. That's another story. But at any rate, you've got to look at these so-called terrorist organizations. They are terrorist organizations, but to examine more carefully what their origins were and who's backing them.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems to me that the fact that every country is related to AFRICOM, and their military is meeting with our military, is a factor that really predicts that the rise of revolutionary movements may not be able to happen for a while until that factor changes. It was also, maybe Margaret can confirm or not, but that actually the United States is moving more soldiers out of Africa because of the so-called pivot to China. Now, whether that's really happened or not, it's probably not sufficiently to really change factors there. Was there another, I think we're nearing our conclusion here.
Yep, no more questions.
Oh, okay. George is laying out the law.
However, Margaret might have a response. She put something in the chat. She may want to add something to this last.
Very quickly about Libya. It doesn't matter what kind, I'm not going to say it doesn't matter, but the humanitarian intervention is always a lie used to get rid of people. Libya suffered far more since Gaddafi was overthrown. That country was destroyed. There's slavery, there's a humanitarian crisis, and other countries too. The US didn't create ISIS, but they certainly support them. These jihadists are proxies for the US everywhere, in Libya, and some of them left Libya to go to Syria to try to overthrow Assad at the behest of the US. So that's something we always have to keep in mind. Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, thank you everyone for sticking with us for almost an hour and a half here, for almost 2 hours. And I'd especially like to thank Kadi and Fatuma and Germaine for being on the call. Your presence is really crucial for our understanding, and the alliances that have formed between you and groups here. And I hope we can, as a result of this call, strengthen those relationships.